My name is Kang Jae-min, and 3 months ago the strongest thing I had ever defeated was a cockroach with a slipper. It took 4 hits. The cockroach won the first 3. So when a glowing blue window appeared over my convenience store register and told me I had been selected as an awakened hunter, I did what any reasonable 22-year-old would do. I laughed, dropped a cup of instant noodles, and asked the empty store if this was some kind of debt collection scam. Then the wall exploded. A goblin flew through the potato chip shelf, hit the freezer, bounced off a box of chocolate pies, and pointed a rusty knife at my face. Behind him, a portal had opened in aisle 4. I stared at the portal. I stared at the goblin. The goblin screamed. I screamed louder. Then my status window appeared. Name: Kang Jae-min. Level 1. Class: Collector. Strength: Pathetic. Agility: Concerning. Mana: Barely enough to warm soup. Unique skill: Boss Remnant. Effect: Defeat a boss-type enemy and permanently acquire its strongest passive trait. At first I thought the system was insulting me. Then I noticed the word permanently. The goblin noticed me noticing the word permanently and charged. I grabbed the first weapon I could find. It was a frozen tuna. I have no idea why the store sold frozen tuna. I also have no idea why it worked. The fish hit the goblin so hard that his knife spun into the ceiling. 1 goblin became 2. 2 became 12. 12 became a screaming green parade pouring out of the portal while I defended the instant noodle aisle like it contained my family honor. I threw canned coffee. I used a mop like a spear. I slapped 1 goblin with a family-sized bag of rice. By the time the police sirens arrived, I had somehow been dragged through the portal with 6 goblins hanging from my jacket. The dungeon sealed behind me. That was the exact moment my life stopped being normal. The inside looked like an underground fortress designed by somebody who had only heard of architecture through angry rumors. Stone pillars leaned sideways. Torches burned green. Wooden bridges crossed pits full of spikes. Goblins in cheap armor ran everywhere, yelling like they were late for work. And at the far end, sitting on a throne made of stolen traffic signs, was the Goblin King. He was 3 meters tall. He had arms thicker than my body. He wore a crown made of spoons. That detail somehow made him more terrifying. The Goblin King stood up, cracked his neck, and slammed a club into the floor. The shockwave threw 30 goblins into the air. My status window blinked. Boss detected. Goblin King Gruk. Rank C. Strongest passive trait: Ogre-blooded muscle. I almost cried, not because I was scared, because my unique skill was apparently serious. All I had to do was defeat a monster that could use a refrigerator as a baseball bat. Easy. I lasted 4 seconds. Gruk grabbed me by the ankle and swung me through a table, then through another table, then through a wall. I remember thinking that if I survived, I was going to leave a very negative dungeon review. I hit the ground in a side room full of barrels. The Goblin King stomped after me. My health dropped to 12%. My weapon was gone. My mana was useless. My ribs felt like someone had reorganized them. Then I noticed the barrels. On each one was a skull symbol. Even I understood that. I backed away and yelled, "Come on, Spoon King!" Gruk roared and charged. I rolled aside at the last second. His club smashed the barrels. The room turned white. I woke up under a pile of goblin armor with 1 eyebrow missing. Gruk was dead. Most of the room was also dead. The system chimed. Boss defeated. Acquiring strongest passive trait. Ogre-blooded muscle acquired. Strength permanently increased by 1,200%. Muscle density permanently increased. Physical growth limit partially released. I sat there for a full minute. Then I flicked a pebble. The pebble went through 3 walls. That was when I started smiling. The dungeon gate reopened 10 minutes later. A rescue team entered expecting corpses. Instead, they found me carrying the Goblin King's club over one shoulder and eating a stolen goblin apple. Hunter Association agents swarmed me before I even reached the street. They tested my mana. Low. They tested my skill. Unreadable. They tested my physical strength. The machine broke. They brought a second machine. That one also broke. The examiner looked at me like I had personally offended science. By sunset, I was registered as an F-rank hunter because my mana rating was terrible. I didn't correct them. Being underestimated felt useful. Also, F-rank hunters got a discount at several restaurants near the association office. For the next week, I tried to understand Boss Remnant. It had rules. I couldn't steal active skills. If a boss breathed fire, I didn't gain fire breath. If a boss summoned skeletons, I didn't gain skeleton summoning. I only gained 1 passive trait, specifically the trait the system considered most valuable. And I only gained it after the boss died by my contribution. That last part mattered. I couldn't stand in the back while someone else killed a dragon. I had to earn it. Unfortunately, bosses were rare. So I did what any intelligent person would do after gaining superhuman strength. I joined the cheapest dungeon raid available. The party leader's name was Park Dae-sik. A D-rank tank with a square jaw and the personality of wet cardboard. He looked at my F-rank badge and laughed. "Stay behind us." I nodded politely. 5 minutes later, the dungeon floor collapsed and everyone fell into an hidden chamber. Day 6 screamed the entire way down. I did not. Mostly because I was busy catching the healer under one arm and the mage under the other. We landed in a frozen cavern. The temperature dropped so fast that everyone's armor turned white with frost. At the center stood a woman made of blue ice, wearing a crown of frozen roses. The Frost Queen. B-rank boss. Everyone panicked. I looked at her status. Strongest passive trait. Absolute cold adaptation. My heart started beating faster. Not from fear, from greed. The Frost Queen raised one hand. Thousands of ice needles formed in the air. Daysik yelled for everyone to retreat. There was nowhere to retreat. So I picked up a boulder. The mage stared at me. "What are you doing?" "Negotiating." I threw the boulder. The Frost Queen blocked it with an ice wall. The wall shattered. The boulder kept going. The throne shattered. The Frost Queen disappeared under 6 tons of rock. For one beautiful second I thought it was over. Then the entire cavern froze solid. Ice climbed my legs. My skin cracked. My lungs burned. The Frost Queen rose from the rubble with half her face missing, and I realized bosses apparently disliked negotiation. She trapped the party in giant blocks of ice and focused on me. I had strength. She had range. I needed a solution. So I punched the floor. The cavern shook. The frozen lake beneath us cracked open. Water exploded upward. The Frost Queen froze it instantly, creating a giant jagged pillar between us. Exactly what I wanted. I grabbed the pillar. The Frost Queen's expression changed. I swung it like a baseball bat. She flew through 3 ice walls, smashed into her own throne room, and landed in a decorative fountain shaped like a penguin. I ran after her. She created an ice dragon. I grabbed the dragon by the tail. I hit her with her own dragon. When it ended, the dungeon looked like a freezer after an earthquake. Boss defeated. Absolute cold adaptation acquired. Cold damage immunity, temperature stabilization, resistance to freezing, frostbite, and low-temperature environmental effects increased beyond measurable limits. The moment the passive activated, I stopped feeling cold. Not reduced cold, not manageable cold, nothing. I walked through a blizzard in a torn shirt and felt like I was standing under a ceiling fan. The party stared at me. Daysik stared hardest. "Your F rank?" "On paper." He stopped asking questions. News spread anyway. A mysterious F rank had killed the Frost Queen by using an ice dragon as sporting equipment. The internet gave me 3 nicknames: the Freezer Menace, the Discount Hercules, and, for reasons nobody could explain, Soup Boy. I hated Soup Boy. I also got invited to a B-rank raid. The boss was supposed to be a blood baron. The association said it was a standard vampire dungeon. Old mansion, fog, bats, creepy music, very traditional. The raid leader was an A-rank swordswoman named Sayura. She was famous for clearing dungeons without taking a single hit. She looked at my file, looked at me, then looked at my file again. "Your records say your mana is still F rank." "Yes." "And you defeated the Frost Queen." "Yes, with an ice dragon." Technically it was more of a club by the end. She stared at me for a long time. Then she pointed at the rear of the formation. "Please stand somewhere I can see you." That was fair. The dungeon went smoothly for 12 minutes. Then every window in the mansion slammed shut. The candles turned red. A giant blood moon appeared through the ceiling even though we were underground. The Blood Baron descended from a chandelier wearing a velvet cape and enough jewelry to fund a small nation. He smiled at Yura. "Beautiful swordswoman, become my immortal bride." Yura drew her sword. "No." He looked at the mage. "You?" "No." He looked at the healer. She raised a holy symbol. "Absolutely not." Then he looked at me. I said, "Don't." He looked offended. The boss window appeared. Blood Baron Valerius. Rank, A. Strongest passive trait, Crimson Reconstitution. Advanced regeneration. My eyes widened. Valerius misunderstood. He spread his arms. "Ah, the young man is impressed." "I am, but not for the reason you think." He turned into mist. That became a problem immediately. My strength meant nothing if I couldn't punch fog. Yura cut through him with aura blades, but the wounds closed instantly. The mage burned him. He regenerated. The healer blasted him with holy magic. He regenerated while complaining about dry skin. Then Valerius bit the tank. The tank turned pale. Valerius laughed and grew stronger. I realized this fight could continue forever. Unless I forced his passive to fail. I searched the room. Mirrors, candles, curtains, giant stained glass windows, a coffin, and one ridiculous golden bathtub full of blood. I pointed at it. What's that? Valerius froze. Nobody else noticed. I did. So that was important. I ran for the bathtub. He appeared in front of me instantly. I changed direction. He followed. I kicked a chair at the coffin. He ignored it. I punched a hole through the floor. He ignored that too. Then I reached toward the bathtub again. Valerius screamed and launched every blood spear he had. There it was, the secret. The Blood Baron's regeneration wasn't free. The blood pool was his external reserve. Yura understood the same moment I did. She attacked him. I grabbed the bathtub. It weighed almost a ton. Valerius shrieked, "Put that down." Sure. I threw it out the window. There was no outside. The mansion existed inside a pocket dungeon. The bathtub fell into a black void and disappeared. Valerius turned gray. He looked at me. I looked at him. He raised one finger. "You are an extremely irritating person. People keep saying that." Yura cut him into 14 pieces. This time, he did not regenerate. I crushed the heart. Boss defeated. Crimson Constitution acquired. Passive regeneration activated. Wounds below fatal threshold will recover automatically. Recovery rate scales with vitality. Recovery may function during combat. I tested it by making a tiny cut on my finger. It vanished instantly. Then I realized I had just obtained the most dangerous possible ability for someone with poor judgment. 2 days later, I learned that regeneration did not remove pain. I discovered this after trying to jump from my apartment roof to the next building. I missed. My legs healed. My dignity did not. My landlord raised the rent. The association upgraded me to C rank despite my F rank mana. I was now officially listed as an anomalous physical combatant, which sounded much better than Soup Boy. That lasted until a guild called Black Lion tried to recruit me. Their vice master Han-suk was an A-rank spear user with slick hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He offered money, a lot of money, then more money, then an apartment, then a sports car. I asked if the sports car included parking. He said no. I rejected the offer. He took that personally. 3 days later, I was assigned to a raid that Black Lion happened to control. Completely by coincidence, of course. The gate was labeled B rank. The moment we entered, it mutated. The sky turned purple. Lightning split the clouds. A mountain unfolded from the ground like something waking up. On top sat a dragon made of black metal and blue electricity. Everyone's status windows screamed emergency messages. Mutated boss detected. Thunder Calamity Dragon. Estimated rank, S. Strongest passive trait. Living lightning vessel. I actually laughed. Han-suk did not. His face looked like someone had just informed him taxes were sentient. The dragon roared. Half the raid party fainted. Then it breathed lightning. The attack erased a line through the forest. Not burned. Erased. I grabbed 2 unconscious hunters and dove behind a cliff. The cliff exploded anyway. My body flew across the valley. Every bone in my right arm broke. Regeneration started. I watched the bones crawl back into place under my skin. It was disgusting. Very useful. Still disgusting. Han-suk shouted that we needed to retreat. The gate had vanished. Of course it had. S-rank dungeons love drama. The dragon descended. Lightning crawled over its scales. Every time someone attacked, the electricity shocked them through their weapons. Yura wasn't here. No high-rank support. Just me. Several terrified B-ranks. Han-suk, and one mage who kept whispering that he had a cat at home. I checked my passives. Ogre-blooded muscle. Absolute cold adaptation. Crimson reconstitution. None of them stopped lightning. So I did what I had learned to do. I stopped trying to beat the boss fairly. I asked the mage, "Can you create metal?" He blinked. "What? Metal. Big metal. I can shape ore. Great. Make me the dumbest sword possible." 5 minutes later, the dragon charged again. I was holding a 12-meter iron rod. Han-suk looked at me. "That's not a sword." "I know. What is it?" A very rude suggestion to the weather. I slammed the rod into the ground at the top of a hill. The dragon fired lightning. The bolt curved. It hit the rod. The entire hill exploded. So did I. For several seconds, I became a human barbecue. Regeneration saved my life. The dragon hovered above the crater, confused. That was the first good sign. The second good sign was that its body had dimmed. It had discharged too much power. I stood up while smoke came out of my mouth. Han-suk looked horrified. I grinned. Again. The mage made 3 more rods. We planted them across the valley. I ran between them while the dragon tried to vaporize me. Each strike drained it. Each strike nearly killed me. Each time, Crimson Reconstitution dragged me back. By the 6th bolt, my hair was standing straight up. By the 9th, I smelled cooked. By the 12th, the dragon's lightning armor flickered. I jumped. Ogre-blooded muscle launched me high enough to reach its head. I grabbed both horns. The dragon tried to recharge. I headbutted it. Nothing happened. Its skull was stronger, so I headbutted it again. That was not smarter. The dragon shook me off and flew toward the storm clouds. I realized what it was doing. It wasn't running. It was recharging from the storm. I had seconds. Hun-suk screamed, "We can't reach it." I looked at the tallest iron rod. I looked at Hun-suk's spear. I looked at Hun-suk. He hugged the spear. "No." I held out my hand. "No." The dragon climbed higher. "Hun-suk, no. I will buy you another spear. It was made by a national artisan. I will buy you the artisan." He gave me the spear. I bent the iron rod into a giant bow. The mage started laughing like he had finally lost his mind. I used Hun-suk's spear as an arrow. We aimed at the dragon. Hun-suk whispered, "Please don't miss." I released. The spear crossed the sky like a meteor. It pierced the dragon's wing. The dragon fell. I jumped after it. We crashed together into the mountain. I punched until the mountain became shorter. Boss defeated. Living lightning vessel acquired. My body went numb. Then every nerve lit up. Electricity wrapped around my skin. I saw my own skeleton for half a second. The system continued. Lightning damage resistance increased to immunity threshold. Movement speed increased while electrically charged. Nervous system response speed greatly enhanced. Body may convert a percentage of lightning damage into physical acceleration. I stood up. A bolt from the remaining storm hit me. Instead of pain, I felt energized. I accidentally took one step. I crossed 300 meters. I hit a tree. The tree lost. That was how I became known as the human power outage. The association finally gave up pretending I was normal. They assigned a special classification, unknown rank. The government offered me a bodyguard team. I declined. The insurance company for my apartment building begged me to move. I accepted. For a brief period, life became strangely comfortable. I made money. I ate expensive food. I bought my mother a house and told her the money came from consulting. She asked why my consulting work kept appearing on the news with explosions. I changed the subject. Then the first red gate opened above Seoul. It covered half the sky. Every hunter within 50 kilometers felt the pressure. People collapsed in the streets. Dogs hid under cars. Birds dropped out of the air. The association summoned every S rank in the country. I arrived late because the subway stopped. When I reached the command center, everyone was staring at the gate. A black castle floated inside. At the highest tower stood a figure with 6 horns. Demon Sovereign BAAL. Disaster rank. Strongest passive trait. Tyrant's presence. The moment I read it, my mouth went dry. Not because the trait sounded powerful, because BAAL looked directly at me from inside another dimension. Then he smiled. The invasion began. Thousands of demons poured through the gate. S-rank hunters launched into the air. Magic covered the sky. Buildings shook. The fight looked like the final episode of an anime with triple the budget. I joined from street level. Lightning body turned every step into a blur. I punched through ogres. Regeneration healed claws. Cold immunity ignored frost demons. My strength turned demon cavalry into airborne problems. But BAAL did not move. He sat on his floating throne and watched. That annoyed me. I hate bosses who treat everyone like entertainment. So I stole a demon wyvern. I did not know how to ride a demon wyvern. The wyvern did not know how to be stolen. We compromised by crashing into the castle. I entered through a window. BAAL clapped slowly. Interesting, I pointed at him. You owe me a new jacket. He smiled. You carry the remnants of kings, so he could sense my passives. That was new. He stood. The room became heavy. My knees bent. My vision blurred. Every instinct screamed at me to crawl. Tyrant's presence. It wasn't just fear. It was biological domination. The body itself believed BAL was a higher life form. My strength meant nothing if my nerves refused to obey. BAL walked toward me. Each step forced me lower. Kneel. My palms hit the floor. He laughed. I hated that laugh, so I bit my tongue. Pain cleared my head for half a second. Then regeneration fixed the wound. I bit it again. Regeneration fixed it again. That gave me an idea. Ball's aura controlled instinct. But pain created immediate signals. My regeneration meant I could generate pain without lasting damage. This was the stupidest strategy I had ever created. Naturally, I used it. I grabbed my own finger. Snap. My body jolted. One step forward. Regeneration. Snap. Another step. Ball stopped laughing. I dislocated my shoulder. Moved forward. It healed. I broke a toe. Moved forward. It healed. BAL stared in absolute disbelief as I marched through his fear aura by repeatedly injuring myself like an idiot possessed by another idiot. What are you? Annoyed. He attacked. A black spear formed in his hand. It pierced my stomach. I kept moving. Regeneration closed around the weapon. He tried to pull it out. I tightened my muscles. The spear got stuck. His face changed. I grabbed his wrist. Ogre-blooded muscle activated at full force. The castle floor shattered. I threw BAL through his own throne. He transformed. 6 wings, 4 arms, black fire, A halo of screaming faces, very dramatic. He gave a speech. I missed most of it because lightning body had already launched me into his chest. We broke through the castle roof. He fired black flames. Cold immunity did nothing. Regeneration did a lot. I caught fire. I stayed on him. He tried to fly higher. I climbed onto his back. He summoned demon chains. I used them to tie his wings together. We fell. He screamed that I was insane. I told him that was not new information. We crashed into the center of the floating castle. The entire fortress tilted. Below us, thousands of demons looked up. So did every hunter. Bal rose from the crater. I rose too. He had one final trick. He expanded Tyrant's presence across the entire battlefield. Hunters froze. Demons cheered. Civilians miles away felt terror. I felt it too, but now I knew his rhythm. Fear came in waves. A pulse through mana. I waited for the gap. Then lightning body moved me between pulses. 1 step, 2, 3. To everyone watching, I probably disappeared. To me, the world stretched into frozen frames. B's eyes widened. I reached him before the next wave. I whispered, found the loading screen. Then I punched him out of the castle. He fell through the red gate. I jumped after him. We entered the space between dimensions. There was no ground, no sky, just red storms and pieces of broken worlds. Bal looked at me like I had crossed a line. Maybe I had. I grabbed his horns. Lightning exploded from my body. I spun. We became a glowing wheel in the void. Then I threw him back toward Earth. He slammed into his own gate core. The core shattered. Ba shattered with it. Boss defeated. Tyrant's presence acquired. A wave passed through me. The demons below stopped cheering. They looked up. Then every single one of them dropped to one knee. I hadn't said anything. I hadn't activated anything. The passive simply existed. My status window updated. Tyrant's presence. Weak-willed enemies experience fear. Lower-rank monsters may submit automatically. Hostile intent may be reduced within close range. Presence scales with number and quality of defeated boss entities. That last sentence felt important. I returned to the battlefield. The S-ranks stared at me. The demon army refused to fight. One demon handed me his sword. Another offered me a chair. A third asked if I wanted tea. I did. It was surprisingly good. After the Red Gate incident, my privacy died. News helicopters followed me. Guilds sent contracts. Countries sent invitations. One king sent me an actual sword. A billionaire sent me a private island. My mother sent me a text asking if I was eating vegetables. Only one of those scared me. I tried to stay out of major raids. I really did. For 6 days. Then Japan discovered a dungeon under Mount Fuji. The dungeon rating system gave up and displayed a skull. Inside was a city-sized labyrinth made of mirrors. At its center lived a 9-tailed fox boss known as the moon-eating kitsune. The international raid team wanted me there. I wanted the boss passive, so everybody won. The dungeon was strange from the beginning. My reflection moved when I didn't. Hallways looped. Doors opened into memories. At one point I entered a room and saw myself at age 8 stealing dumplings from my grandmother's kitchen. The fake grandmother chased me with a wooden spoon. She was somehow stronger than the goblins. I escaped. The raid team did not understand why I looked traumatized. We reached the inner palace. The moon-eating kitsune appeared as a woman with silver hair, 9 tails, and a smile that immediately told me she enjoyed ruining people's days. Boss detected. Moon-eating kitsune. Rank SSS. Strongest passive trait. Unbreakable mind palace. Mental interference immunity. Perfect memory partitioning. Illusion resistance. I wanted it, badly. The kitsune looked into my eyes. The world changed. I was back at the convenience store. No dungeons, no monsters, no status window. I was working the night shift. My mother was healthy. My friends were alive. People I had failed to save during raids walked past the window. They smiled. For a moment I believed it. That was the dangerous part. The illusion didn't try to scare me. It gave me everything I secretly wanted. Normal life, no responsibility, no explosions, no one calling me soup boy. Then the store door opened. The kitsune walked in wearing a convenience store uniform. She leaned on the counter. You can stay. I looked at her. Do I still have to work weekends? She blinked. What? The schedule. She stared. I pointed at the fake employee board. My name is on Saturday. Yes? That means this is definitely hell. The illusion cracked. The kitsune's eye twitched. I punched the register. The world shattered. We returned to the mirror palace. Only 2 seconds had passed. The rest of the raid team was trapped in illusions. The kitsune sighed. You humans are so difficult. Apparently I'm worse, she smiled. Then 9 moons appeared behind her. Each tail created a different illusion. I fought myself. I fought fake friends. I fought a version of my mother who told me to stop. That one almost worked. So I closed my eyes. The kitsune laughed. You think blindness protects you? No. I opened my status window. My status window was system generated. Her illusions copied vision and memory, but they could not alter system text. I watched the numbers instead of the room. Distance to boss, hostile presence, my own health. I moved by data. The kitsune created a fake floor. I ignored it. A fake wall. Ignored. A fake dragon. Ignored. Then a fake me appeared with better hair. I almost attacked that one out of principle. I followed the boss marker. I reached the kitsune. She panicked and split into 10 bodies. Only one had the boss icon. I grabbed her tail. She screamed. The other 8 tails wrapped around me. She transformed into a giant silver fox the size of a stadium. I was still holding one tail, so I did what had worked before. I swung the boss by the boss. The palace became a blur. Once, twice, 3 times. The international raid team woke from their illusions just in time to see me using a legendary spirit beast as a flail. Nobody spoke. I slammed her into the moon altar. The altar broke. The dungeon moon fell out of the sky. It was smaller than expected. About the size of a bus. It hit the kitsune. Boss defeated. Unbreakable mind palace acquired. My thoughts became quiet, not empty, organized. It felt like someone had cleaned a room I didn't know was messy. Mental attacks were blocked. Illusions became transparent. Memory could be stored in protected partitions. The passive also had a strange side effect. I could remember every embarrassing thing I had ever done with perfect clarity. I hated it. The kitsune's dungeon collapsed. We escaped. Then the system gave me a message I had never seen before. Boss remnant milestone reached. 5 high-grade passives acquired. Evolution condition partially fulfilled. Next evolution requires 1 conceptual boss trait. I read that 3 times. Conceptual boss. I asked the association what that meant. They said they had no idea. I asked the system. It ignored me. So naturally, the answer arrived by breaking reality. A week later, every clock in Busan stopped at 3:17 p.m. Not just digital clocks, mechanical clocks, phones, watches, microwaves. A man in a restaurant dropped a spoon and it froze in mid-air. Rain stopped falling. Cars stopped moving. People stopped breathing. Only awakened hunters above B rank remained conscious. Then a black tower rose from the ocean. At the top floated a creature wearing a robe made of clock hands. It had no face, only a rotating dial. Boss detected. The Hour Eater. Rank, unmeasurable. Type, conceptual entity. Strongest passive trait, temporal anchoring. I smiled so hard my jaw hurt. There it was. The Hour Eater raised one hand. Time moved. Everything that had frozen suddenly accelerated. Rain hit the city like bullets. Cars jumped forward. People stumbled. The raid team barely stabilized the area. The Hour Eater then stole 30 seconds. That sounds harmless. It was not. One moment I was standing on a rooftop. The next moment the building behind me was cut in half and I was bleeding from 6 wounds I never felt happen. My regeneration activated. The wounds closed. Then another 30 seconds vanished. I reappeared underwater. I didn't know how. The boss was cheating, not moving fast, deleting the experience of time itself. Lightning body was useless if I couldn't experience the interval. Unbreakable mind palace protected my thoughts but not chronology. Tyrant's presence did nothing because the Hour Eater had no fear. I climbed out of the ocean and watched the city. Each time the boss stole time, clocks jumped. The intervals were exactly 30 seconds. That gave me one thing. Pattern. I couldn't react during stolen time, but I could prepare before it. I tore steel cables from a bridge. The association director screamed through my earpiece. Please stop dismantling infrastructure. I'm saving the city. You are holding an entire support beam. It was already loose. It was not. The Hour Eater raised its hand. I wrapped the cable around my waist and anchored the other end to the deepest foundation I could reach. Time vanished. When awareness returned, I was 3 kilometers away. The cable was stretched tight. Interesting. My body had moved during stolen time. I just couldn't remember it. So the Hour Eater wasn't deleting time. It was deleting awareness and control. Something else was controlling events. Maybe the boss was moving everyone like pieces. I needed to become impossible to move. Ogre-blooded muscle let me increase my grip. I buried both hands into the bedrock. The next 30 seconds vanished. I woke in the exact same spot. My arms were broken. The ground around me had been torn apart. Regeneration fixed me. I laughed. Now I had leverage. The Hour Eater tried again. Same result. It couldn't relocate me without destroying the city, so it came closer. That was what I wanted. The boss descended to the rooftop. Its faceless dial turned toward me. I pretended to struggle. It reached out. The next time skip began. But before it triggered, I grabbed its wrist. Awareness vanished. When it returned, I was still holding on. So was the boss. We were now 2 kilometers in the air. It had tried to escape during the missing interval. I had come with it. The Hour Eater tilted its head. I could almost feel its confusion. I grinned. You stole my 30 seconds. Lightning built around my body. So I'm taking your next one. The boss triggered another skip. This time I didn't fight the missing time. I trusted my grip. Awareness returned. My fist was already buried in its chest. I had attacked during the skip. I couldn't remember doing it, but my body had followed intent. Unbreakable Mind Palace had stored the command. That was the loophole. I prepared a sequence. Grip, pull, punch, repeat. The Hour Eater stole 30 seconds. When the world returned, the boss was missing an arm. Again. It lost half its robe. Again. We crashed into the tower. Again. The tower lost 12 floors. The boss finally stopped using its own ability. Terrible mistake. Now I could see. Lightning body turned me into a streak. I attacked from every angle. The Hour Eater reversed time on its wounds. Regeneration versus time reversal became a ridiculous battle of who could refuse damage harder. Then it aged my right arm 100 years. The skin withered. My regeneration rebuilt it. It aged my whole body. Regeneration fought back. It tried to return me to childhood. Ogre-blooded muscle remained. For one horrifying second I became a 10-year-old with shoulders like a truck. Then regeneration and temporal distortion snapped me back. I decided I had seen enough. I grabbed the giant clock hand from its tower. I drove it through the boss's dial. The Hour Eater froze. Every stopped clock in Busan chimed at once. Boss defeated. Temporal anchoring acquired. Time-affecting abilities have reduced influence. Personal state resists forced acceleration, deceleration, reversal, and temporal displacement. Memory continuity preserved across altered temporal intervals. I almost cried. Not from emotion, because the milestone window immediately covered my entire vision. Boss remnant evolution complete. Class evolved. Collector became sovereign archive. Passive capacity limit removed. Boss trait synergy unlocked. Trait fusion possible under extreme conditions. Status display compression recommended. I selected yes. My status window became smaller, for now. After Busan, people stopped calling me a hunter. Some called me a weapon. Some called me a national treasure. One politician called me the shield of humanity during a televised speech. I was eating fried chicken when I heard it. I nearly choked. The problem with becoming powerful is that everyone assumes you know what you're doing. I did not. I was still the same guy who once lost a fight to a cockroach. I just had enough passive abilities to survive my own decisions. Then the dungeons changed. Bosses started appearing more often. Not random bosses, strange ones, specific ones. A stone colossus whose passive made its skin adapt to repeated damage. A plague mother whose strongest trait purified any toxin entering her body. A kraken emperor whose passive let its organs function independently. A sun lion whose body stored solar energy. A dream warden who never needed sleep. A gluttony slime that could digest almost anything. I hunted them all, sometimes with teams, sometimes alone, sometimes accidentally. The stone colossus took 6 hours because every punch made it tougher. So I stopped punching and dropped a mountain on it. Adaptive carapace acquired. The plague mother filled an entire valley with poison. I walked through it after temporarily sealing my lungs with muscle control, and discovered that regeneration could heal poison damage faster than poison could spread. Toxin sovereignty acquired. The Kraken Emperor dragged me to the bottom of the Pacific. Cold immunity handled temperature. Regeneration handled pressure badly. Independent Organ Network handled everything after I ripped out 3 of its hearts. The Sun Lion lived in a desert dungeon where the ground was hot enough to melt metal. Cold immunity did not help. I learned that lesson very quickly. The boss absorbed sunlight and fired beams from its mane. So I buried us both under sand for 2 days. It ran out of solar power. I ran out of patience. Solar furnace acquired. The Dream Warden trapped hunters in eternal sleep. Unbreakable Mind Palace laughed at it. I did not. I was too tired. I defeated the boss and gained Sleepless Engine. I never needed sleep again. That sounded amazing. It was not. Do you know what happens when you never need sleep? Everyone assumes you are available all the time. The association called me at 2 a.m. Guilds called me at 4 a.m. My mother called me at 6 a.m. because she knew I was awake. Immortality would probably be less exhausting. The gluttony slime was worse. It ate buildings, weapons, magic, a bus. I found the bus passengers inside unharmed because apparently the slime disliked humans but loved upholstery. Its passive was universal digestion. I defeated it by feeding it an entire abandoned warehouse full of expired protein powder. The slime expanded again, then regretted existence. Universal digestion acquired. My stomach became capable of processing almost any non-hostile material. I immediately tested it by eating a spoon. Metal tasted terrible, The internet found out. Soup Boy returned. I considered moving to another planet. Then I got invited to the World Hunter Summit in Geneva. Every country sent its strongest awakened people. The room had more ego than oxygen. America sent Atlas Kane, a giant SSS-Rank tank, who had survived a nuclear-class dungeon. China sent Lin Yue, the Sword Saint. Brazil sent twins who could merge into a giant jaguar spirit. France sent a necromancer wearing sunglasses indoors. Nobody liked him. I arrived wearing a hoodie. The security scanner exploded when it tried to read my stats. The meeting had one purpose. Dungeon bosses were evolving. Worse, some were disappearing before hunters could reach them. Entire dungeon cores were being emptied. Something was hunting bosses. I immediately disliked that. Not because it was dangerous, because those were my passives. Then the lights went out. Tyrant's presence reacted. Something powerful entered the room. The wall behind the world leaders split open. A man stepped through. He looked ordinary. Black suit, white gloves, no weapon, no visible mana. Then every S-rank in the room moved at once. Atlas punched. Lin Yue drew her sword. The Jaguar twins transformed. The stranger raised one hand. They stopped, not froze, stopped. Like their bodies had forgotten what motion was. My status window appeared. Unknown boss class life form detected. Name, Kane. Title, The First Hunter. Rank, unavailable. Passive traits detected, multiple. My blood went cold even though I was immune to cold. Multiple passives. That was impossible. Kane looked directly at me. Then he smiled. Finally. I moved. Lightning body crossed the room. My fist hit his face. The shockwave blew out every window. Kane flew through 4 conference halls. I followed. He caught my second punch. Actually caught it. One hand. Ogre-blooded muscle pushed. The floor cratered. Kane did not move. Then his grip tightened. My wrist cracked. Regeneration healed it. He noticed. His smile widened. Crimson Rock Institution. I froze. He knew the name. He punched me. I crossed half the city. Temporal anchoring kept me conscious. Adaptive carapace hardened my body after the first impact. I tore through a building, bounced off a bridge, and landed in a fountain. Tourists screamed. I stood up. Kane was already there. How do you know my passive? Because I killed the original owner before your species learned to write. That sentence created several questions. I chose the simplest. How old are you? Kane tilted his head. Old enough to be tired. He attacked again. This time adaptive carapace reduced the damage. Kane's eyes sharpened. He changed his strike. Instead of force, his hand passed through my skin and hit something deeper. My entire body shut down. Independent organ network restarted my heart. Toxin sovereignty blocked a strange venom. Temporal anchoring stopped my nerves from being permanently scrambled. I fell to one knee. Kane looked genuinely pleased. You are building well. Building, not growing. Building, like he knew exactly what I was. I unleashed Tyrant's presence. The street cracked under the pressure. Civilians fled. Nearby monsters in containment cages passed out. Kane's coat moved slightly. That was all. He had a counter. Of course he did. He reached for my head. Unbreakable Mind Palace flared. A mental attack shattered against it. For the first time, Kane frowned. Moon-eating kitsune. He knew that too. I grabbed his arm. Lightning exploded. Solar furnace dumped stored energy into the charge. The street turned white. Kane actually flew backward. I chased him. We fought across the city faster than cameras could track. Every time he used a strange effect, one of my passives resisted. DK, Toxin Sovereignty, Mind Crush, Unbreakable Mind Palace, Time Fracture, Temporal Anchoring, Nerve Shutdown, Independent Organ Network, Heat Collapse, Solar Furnace Adapted, Physical Destruction, Regeneration and Adaptive Carapace. Kane had more skills. I had more ways to say no. Eventually we reached the lake. I punched him into the water. He walked back out. His suit was still perfect. That irritated me more than anything else. You're not here to kill me, I said. Kane stopped. Correct. Then why attack? To measure you. Couldn't you use a ruler? He ignored that. Behind him, the air opened. Not a dungeon gate. Something older. A vertical crack filled with stars. Kane stepped toward it. I tried to follow. The system screamed. Forbidden boundary. Outer layer access denied. Kane glanced over his shoulder. You have been collecting fragments. So have you. Yes. How? His expression changed. For the first time, the smile disappeared. I was the first person given your class. Then he stepped through the crack. It closed. I stood on the shore, soaked, confused, and furious. The association found me 10 minutes later. Atlas Kane arrived carrying half a conference table as a shield. He looked at the destroyed street. He looked at me. Did you win? No. His face became serious. Nobody had heard me say that before. I spent the next month searching for Kane. Nothing. No records. No photos older than the summit. No mana signature. No dungeon logs. Unbreakable Mind Palace let me replay every word he had said perfectly. The first hunter. Original owner. Building well. First person given your class. That meant Boss Remnant was not unique. Or maybe it had never belonged to me at all. Then another message appeared. Not from the system. The text was read. Archive vessel identified. Synchronization at 19%. Continue acquisition. I stared at it. Then it disappeared. 2 nights later, every gate on Earth opened at the same time. I was eating dumplings. Of course I was. 1 second I was deciding whether the last dumpling belonged to me or my mother. The next second, emergency sirens screamed across the city and my status window covered the television. Global anomaly detected. All boss class entities are being recalled. I stared at the message, then at the dumpling. My mother took the dumpling. Disaster had consequences. Outside, the sky looked broken. Dungeon gates floated above every city like glowing wounds, but monsters were not coming out. They were being pulled in. Dragons, demon generals, undead kings, giant beasts, even bosses already fighting raid teams suddenly abandoned everything and rushed backward through their own gates. Hunters stood there confused. I was not confused. I was angry. Those bosses had passives. My passives, potentially. A red message appeared. Archive vessel synchronization, 19%. Collection phase accelerating. Required completion threshold approaching. I touched the window. It vanished. Then Kane appeared on the roof across from me like creepy ancient men apparently did not believe in doors. I jumped over. He looked at the sky. You saw the message? Yes. Then stop collecting. No. He slowly turned toward me. That was not a suggestion. Good, because I rejected it. Kane's eye twitched. I pointed upward. You said you were the first person with my class. Explain. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he opened his status window. It was damaged. That was the only way I could describe it. Half the lines were blacked out. Other lines flickered. Some traits were listed as missing. But the number of old entries kept scrolling. Hundreds. Thousands. Boss traits from creatures I had never heard of. Dragon hearts. Titan bones. Void sight. Immortal blood. Law resistance. Soul anchoring. There were so many that his window looked like someone had dropped an encyclopedia down an elevator shaft. I collected them, Kane said. Just like you. What happened? The system was not rewarding me. It was assembling me. I stopped smiling. Kane continued. Every powerful boss contains a fragment. The strongest passive is the stable part. Collect enough fragments and the vessel becomes compatible. Compatible with what? He looked at the sky. The thing behind the system. That was a very bad answer. My window flashed. Synchronization, 20%. I had not defeated anything, Kane noticed. It has started forcing the process. Can I stop it? I tried. That wasn't my question. His jaw tightened. That told me everything. He had failed. But failure was not the same as impossible. Another alert appeared. The global gates folded inward. Across the horizon, points of light rose into the sky. Thousands, then millions, boss cores. Every unclaimed fragment on Earth was being gathered into one place. The moon disappeared behind a black circle. A new gate formed above the planet. It was so large that half the world could see it. System event detected. Final consolidation beginning. All remaining boss fragments will merge. Expected result, single archive guardian. Kane looked genuinely horrified. I read the next line. Estimated passive traits, 8,941,773. I blinked. My own status window opened automatically. It listed everything I had gained. Ogre-blooded muscle, absolute cold adaptation, crimson reconstitution, living lightning vessel, tyrant's presence, unbreakable mind palace, temporal anchoring, adaptive carapace, toxin sovereignty, independent organ network, solar furnace, sleepless engine, universal digestion, and more minor resistances beneath them. The list stretched from my forehead to my shoes. I tried scrolling. It kept going. The system offered compression. I rejected it. Kane stared at me. Why? I worked hard for this list. This is not the time to be sentimental about menu size. Then the black gate pulsed. A private invitation appeared only in front of me. Archive vessel detected. Early entry permitted. Destination World Layer 0. Warning. Entry before consolidation may result in permanent deletion. Below that was a timer. 60 seconds. Kane could not see the words, but he saw my face. What did it offer? Early entry. His expression changed instantly. No, there are millions of boss fragments inside. That is exactly why no. If they finish merging, I have to fight one monster with all of them. Yes, if I enter now, I can fight them before they merge. You are describing this as though either option is reasonable. I opened Universal Digestion. The passive gave no advice. Probably because eating system fragments was not in the manual. 30 seconds. Kane grabbed my shoulder. If you collect too many, synchronization will complete. Then I won't collect them the normal way. He stared. I pointed at Universal Digestion. Kane stared harder. No, you haven't even heard the plan. You are going to eat something you should not eat. That is most of the plan. The portal opened in front of me. Inside was darkness filled with floating lights. Each light carried a name. Phoenix Rebirth. Gravity Heart. Perfect Balance. Void Respiration. Damage Reflection. Infinite Growth. Soul Armor. Luck Theft. One passive after another. My eyes moved faster, then faster. My status window tried to preview nearby traits. It expanded, then expanded again. It covered nearly my entire vision. System warning. Display capacity exceeded. I laughed. Kane did not. Something moved beyond the floating cores. A giant armored silhouette stood at the entrance to World Layer 0. Its head had 3 crowns. Its body was wrapped in chains made of status windows. Boss detected. Gate Warden Ion. Strongest passive trait. Unstoppable entry. I cracked my knuckles. The timer reached 5 seconds. Kane stepped closer. If the gate closes, I may not be able to reach you. Then don't be late. 3 seconds. The Gate Warden opened 6 glowing eyes. 2 seconds. Millions of unfinished boss fragments began rushing toward the center of the world. 1 second. Somewhere in that darkness, something with almost 9 million passives started growing a heartbeat. I jumped through. The gate slammed shut behind me. Ayan raised one hand. A health bar appeared. It stretched across my entire vision. Then it wrapped onto a second line, then a third. I looked at my ridiculous status window. I looked at the ridiculous health bar. And for the first time since I killed a goblin with a frozen tuna, I thought maybe I had finally found a boss stupid enough to match me.